The market was alive with strange sounds and smells, creatures from dozens of worlds moving between stalls, their voices blending into a constant hum. Evan, the only human in sight, walked slowly, careful not to bump into anyone. The air was warm and heavy, carrying scents of spice, metal, and something sharp that made his nose twitch. He had learned long ago to keep his head down here. In this place, humans were watched, not trusted. He kept his eyes moving, scanning the alien faces and the goods they sold. Somewhere ahead, a sudden scream cut through the noise, sharp and desperate. Heads turned. A ripple went through the crowd. Evan's heart jumped. He pushed forward, weaving between tall, scaled merchants and short fur-covered traders. The sound came again, closer this time. He saw a small figure pressed against a wall, her skin a pale silver blue, eyes wide with terror. Between her and the open street stood a beast unlike anything he had seen before. Its body low and muscular, covered in dark plates, 4 eyes fixed on her, saliva dripping from long curved fangs. The creature crouched, its tail lashing. The girl's back hit the wall, and there was nowhere left for her to go. Evan did not think. His body moved before his mind could catch up. He shoved himself into the narrow gap. Stepping between the beast and the girl, the alien eyes widened, confusion flashing for a second before rage took over. The beast lunged. Pain exploded in Evan's arm. Hot and deep, the fangs sank in, the pressure crushing his muscles. His breath caught, his vision swam. He heard a gasp from behind him, small hands grabbing his shoulder, trying to pull him back. The crowd had gone silent. No one moved to help, no one shouted. They just stared, with a roar of effort. Evan shoved his other hand into the beast's neck, pushing hard. It growled and jerked back, ripping its fangs free. His arm burned like fire, and black veins were already spreading from the wound. He staggered, his knees threatening to give way. The beast hissed and slunk back into the shadows, melting into the maze of alleys. The girl stared at him, her silver blue skin trembling, her mouth opening and closing like she wanted to speak but couldn't find words. Evan gave her a weak smile, though the pain made it hard. The noise of the market slowly returned, but softer now, filled with whispers. A human. He took the bite, for one of them. The air shifted. Heavy footsteps echoed. The crowd parted as tall alien guards in dark armor approached, their faces hidden behind insect-like masks. Behind them came a figure who seemed to carry the weight of command in every step. His height was greater than any in the crowd. His skin dark bronze and lined with deep scars. His eyes sharp and unblinking. Evan tried to stay on his feet, but the burning in his arms spread to his chest, each breath harder than the last. The guards stopped in front of him, but it was the towering figure who spoke, his voice low yet carrying across the square. Take him to the hall. Alive, the order hung in the air. The crowd murmured in shock. No one refused the chief. 2 guards moved forward, gripping Evan under the arms before he could fall. He caught a final glimpse of the girl's face, her eyes glistening with something. More than fear now, maybe gratitude, maybe disbelief. The world tilted. The sounds blurred into a dull roar as they carried him away. Evan's mind clung to the one thought that had pushed him into danger. Without hesitation, she had needed help, and no one else had moved. The warmth of the alien sun faded, replaced by shadows as they entered the narrow streets leading to the hall. His vision flickered. The pain doled into a cold ache, somewhere in that fading haze. He heard the chief's voice again, speaking to someone else. This one is not like the others. Watch him. The words barely reached Evan before darkness pulled him under. The last thing he saw was the strange green light spilling from the hall's entrance, promising answers or more danger. When he woke, Evan woke slowly, as if rising from the bottom of a deep ocean, his body heavy and weak. A faint green glow filled his vision before his eyes could fully open. The air felt warm, but carried an odd metallic taste. When his sight cleared, he realized he was lying on a bed unlike anything he had seen. Made of smooth black stone with soft woven sheets that shimmered faintly in the light. The room was round, its high walls carved with strange patterns that seemed to shift when he looked too long. His arm throbbed, but when he looked at it, wound was covered in a cloth that seemed alive, faint lines of light running through it. The pain was dull. Now, more of a heavy ache than the fire it had been before. He turned his head and froze. Sitting on a low stool not far from him was the silver-blue girl from the market. Her hands folded in her lap, her eyes red as if she had been crying for a long time. She noticed him move and sat up straight. "You're awake," she said softly, her voice shaky but relieved. "I thought you wouldn't." She stopped herself, looking away as if she didn't want to finish that sentence. Evan tried to speak, his throat dry. "Where am I?" he asked. The girl hesitated, glancing toward the door before answering. "The hall of the chief." Before Evan could ask more, the door opened with a deep, rumbling sound. Two guards stepped in, their armor glinting in the green light. They stood aside as the towering figure from the marketplace entered. The alien chief up close, he was even more intimidating. His presence filled the room, his eyes sharp, unreadable. His bronze skin marked with old battle scars that told stories of years of war. He stood at the foot of Evan's bed, studying him in silence for several long moments. His gaze moved from Evan's face to his bandaged arm, then to the girl. "Leave us," the chief said to her, his voice deep but not unkind. The girl looked like she wanted to protest, but she lowered her head and left quietly, the door closing. Behind her, the chief pulled a chair closer, sitting in a way that made the bed feel suddenly very small. "Why would a human take the bite for one of us?" he asked, his tone more curious than accusing. Evan blinked, unsure how to answer in a way that made sense, because she needed help. He said finally. No one else moved. The chief's eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger, but in thought. "In this city, that is not how things work," he said slowly. "Here, people look to their own first." His gaze sharpened. "Humans and my people. We are not allies." Evan met his eyes. "I didn't think about that. I just saw her in danger." For a moment, the chief said nothing. Then he leaned back, his eyes still locked on Evan. "The beast that bit you is one of the most venomous. In this region," he said, "the venom should have stopped your heart within minutes." He gestured to Evan's bandaged arm. "Yet you are still breathing." A soft sound came from the side of the room, and a figure stepped forward that Evan hadn't noticed. A healer, tall and thin, with skin like polished stone and eyes that glowed faintly. "We have treated bite wounds before," the healer said. "No one has ever survived without losing a limb or their life." He tilted his head at Evan. "This is unusual." Evan looked down at his arm, feeling the faint pulse of pain under the bandages. "Maybe I was just lucky," he said, but neither the healer nor the chief seemed to believe it. The chief's expression was unreadable, but his voice carried weight when he spoke again. "Luck does not interest me. Human, but cause. That is something worth knowing." The chief stood, his height making the room feel smaller. "You will stay here," he said, "until I decide what to do." "With you," Evan felt the weight of the words, like a door closing behind him. "Am I a prisoner?" he asked. The chief paused at the door, glancing back. "That depends on what you are." The guards moved in as the chief left, not touching Evan, but making it clear he wasn't going anywhere without their say. The healer returned to check his bandages, murmuring to himself in a language Evan didn't understand. When the healer left, the girl returned quietly, carrying a small bowl of something that steamed faintly. "You should eat," she said, placing it beside him. He looked. at her and asked, "What's your name?" She hesitated, as if unsure whether to tell him. "Kari," she said finally. "I'm grateful." Evan managed a faint smile. "I'm Evan." For a while, they sat in silence, the green light casting strange shadows on the walls. Kari looked as if she had questions, but didn't know how to ask them. Evan could feel the tension in the air, something about the chief's reaction. The healer's words, the way the guards watched him, it all felt like he had stepped into something far larger than just saving a girl in a market. And deep down, he knew the bite had changed more than just his arm. Evan did not leave the hall in the days that followed. The room was comfortable, but it still felt like a place he was not meant to leave without permission. Guards stood outside the door at all times. Kari visited often, sometimes bringing food, sometimes just sitting quietly. He noticed the way she watched him, as if trying to understand why he had done what he did. On the third day, the sound of cord, mamal. The sound of heavy boots approached, the door swung open, and the alien chief stepped inside. 2 guards followed, but stayed near the doorway. The chief's presence was enough to make the room feel smaller. He looked at Evan for a long moment before speaking. "If you are as brave as they say, prove it." His voice was calm, but carried the weight of an order. Evan frowned. "Prove it how?" he asked. The chief did not answer right away. Instead, he turned to Kari. "You will go with him," he said. Kari's eyes widened. "Go where?" she asked, but the chief was already moving toward the door, to the proving ground. The words meant nothing to Evan, but from the way Kari's hands tightened, he guessed it was not going to be pleasant minutes later. He was led through twisting corridors until they stepped out into a huge open space, a circular arena surrounded by high stone walls. Alien faces looked down from above. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds. The air buzzed with low murmurs. In the center of the arena stood 3 alien warriors, each taller than Evan, wearing light armor and carrying long, curved staffs. They moved with the ease of those who had trained their whole lives. The chief's voice echoed from above. "You will protect her," he said, "from them." Evan's stomach tightened. Wait, protect her from what, exactly? But there was no answer. The warriors began to circle. Kari stood close to him, her eyes darting between the 3. "Don't try to fight them head on," she whispered. "They're faster." Evan nodded, his mind racing. The first warrior lunged without warning, the staff swinging toward Kari. Evan stepped in front, blocking the blow with his forearm. Pain shot through him, but he held his ground. The crowd reacted with a mix of shouts and gasps. Another warrior came from the side, trying to slip past. Evan turned quickly, shoving Kari out of the way before taking the hit himself. The force knocked him to one knee, his breath coming fast. They didn't stop, moving in patterns that forced him to protect Kari from all sides. He realized they weren't trying to seriously injure her. This was a test, one designed to see how long he could keep her safe. Every muscle in his body screamed. Sweat stung his eyes, but each time a strike came, he stepped in front, absorbing the blow. Kari started to move with him, anticipating the attacks, helping him block or dodge. Once, she even grabbed the end of a staff and twisted it hard, breaking the warrior's grip for a moment. The crowd noticed, the murmurs growing louder. One of the warriors feinted toward Evan, then spun and aimed for Kari's back. Evan reacted without thinking, grabbing the staff mid-swing. The impact jolted through his arms, but he didn't let go. He yanked hard, pulling the warrior off balance, using the moment to push Kari behind him again. Minutes felt like hours. His chest burned with every breath, but he refused to give ground. At last, a horn sounded from above. The warriors froze and stepped back, lowering their staffs. Evan stood panting, his legs unsteady, Kari beside him, both of them marked with fresh bruises. The chief stepped down into the arena, the crowd falling silent. He studied Evan with an expression that gave nothing away. "You did not try to win," he said. "You only tried to protect." Evan wiped sweat from his brow. "That was the point, wasn't it?" he asked. The chief's gaze moved to Kari, then back to Evan. "Many would have used her as a shield to save themselves," he said. "You did not." There was a faint shift in his tone, something like respect, though it was quickly hidden. "The test is over," he said, turning away. As Evan and Kari were led out of the arena, he noticed some of the faces in the crowd watching him differently now. Not with suspicion, but with curiosity, perhaps even approval. Kari glanced up at him and said quietly, "They didn't expect you to last that long." Evan gave her a tired smile. "Neither did I, but deep inside, he knew he had passed something more important than a simple trial. He had shown them that his actions in the market had not been an accident, and maybe, just maybe, the chief had seen it too. That night, Evan lay awake in the hall, the low green glow from the walls casting long shadows across the room. His body ached from the trial, every bruise reminding him of the strikes he had taken in the arena. Kari sat near the window, looking out at the alien city, her silver-blue skin reflecting the light like moonlit water. She was quiet for a long time before finally speaking. "Do you know what that creature was? The one that bit you?" Evan shook his head. "Only that it hurt like hell." Kari turned her gaze to him, her expression serious. "It was no ordinary beast. Its venom is feared because it kills quickly. But it's also sacred." She hesitated, as if choosing her words carefully. "In our oldest stories, there's a prophecy. It speaks of an outsider who will take the bite meant for the child of the stars and survive. That outsider would change the fate of the clans." Evan frowned, the words sitting heavy in the air. "Child of the stars?" he asked. Kari looked away. "It's an old title, and it belongs to me." Evan stared at her, trying to process it. "You mean," she nodded, cutting him off, "I'm the youngest daughter of the chief, hidden from the public because of the danger. If my enemies knew where I was, they would use me to control him." The room felt suddenly smaller, the memory of the market sharper now. If he hadn't stepped in, the beast's fangs would have been in her instead of him. "And your prophecy says I'm supposed to what? Unite your people?" he asked, a hint of disbelief in his voice. Kari gave a small, humorless smile. "I don't know. But my father will see this as more than coincidence." The door opened and the chief entered, his heavy steps echoing softly. Two guards stayed outside. He looked at Kari for a moment before turning his gaze to Evan. "I see you've been told," he said, his tone giving away nothing. Evan sat up straighter. "I didn't get bitten because of some prophecy," he said. "I just saw someone in danger and acted." The chief studied him with those sharp, unreadable eyes. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "but my people believe in signs. And signs can move armies." He walked further into the room, his presence filling it like before. "The beast that bit you appears once in a generation. Its venom kills in minutes, yet here you are, breathing, speaking." Evan flexed his fingers, feeling the ache in his arm. "Maybe I'm just stubborn," he said. The chief almost smiled, but it was gone in an instant. "You have drawn attention, human attention, from friends. And from enemies." He paused. "Word is already spreading across the clans about the man who took the bite for the chief's hidden daughter." Kari stiffened at the words, her hands curling into fists. "That means they'll come for me," she said. The chief's gaze did not leave Evan. "Yes, and for him." Evan leaned forward. "Then, what's your plan?" The chief stepped closer. "My plan is to find out whether you are a gift to my people or a threat in disguise." The way he said it made Evan's skin prickle. A sudden knock came at the door. A healer entered carrying a small wooden box carved with strange symbols. He set it on the table and opened it to reveal a set of crystal vials. each one glowing faintly. The healer spoke in a low voice. "We tested the venom in his blood. It is changing." Evan tensed. "Changing how?" The healer glanced at the chief before answering, "It's merging with you, not killing you. The poison should have destroyed your body, but instead it's making you stronger." Kiri's eyes widened. Stronger. The chief looked down at Evan, his voice lower now. Perhaps the prophecy was right. Perhaps the bite was meant to be. He straightened. "But that also means every clan leader who fears the prophecy will want you dead before it can come true." Evan let out a slow breath, the reality settling in. "So I saved your daughter. And now the whole world wants to kill me." The chief's expression was unreadable again. "And that, human, is why you are still here, alive, under my roof." He turned to Kari. "Do not leave his side." She nodded without hesitation. "When?" The chief left. The room was silent again. Evan leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "I didn't ask for this," he said quietly. Kari's voice was softer now. "Prophecy or not, you saved me. That's all that matters to me." Outside, the city hummed with life. But Evan could feel the shift in the air, a storm of danger building. And he knew the bite had tied his fate to Kari's in a way he could never have imagined. The days after the prophecy talk felt heavy, even though Evan was allowed to walk. In the hall's inner gardens, he could feel eyes on him wherever he went. Kari stayed close, sometimes walking beside him in silence. Sometimes pointing out the strange flowers that glowed faintly in the dark, or the fountains that whispered in a language he could not understand. But the peace never lasted long. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the sky turned the color of burning copper, a messenger rushed into the hall. His clothes torn and dusty from travel, the guards let him through quickly. The man bowed before the chief and spoke in an urgent voice. Evan couldn't catch all the words, but he saw the chief's jaw tighten, his eyes narrow. Later, the chief called for Evan and Kari to join him in a private chamber. The walls here were thick stone, the air cool and still. The chief's voice was calm, but the weight behind it was clear. "An enemy clan has gathered their warriors," he said. "They know Kari is alive. They are coming to take her." Kari's hands clenched at her sides. "They'll use me to control you," she said quietly. The chief didn't deny it. "Which is why you will leave tonight." He turned his gaze to Evan. "You will lead her to safety." Evan blinked. "I'm not exactly trained for this," he said. "You have something?" "They do not," the chief replied. "You have already proven you will protect her at any cost." An hour later, Evan was given a small pack with supplies, a curved alien blade that felt strange in his hand, and a short-barreled weapon he had never seen before. Kari wore a dark cloak that hid her face. They slipped out through a side gate under the cover of night. 2 guards led them as far as the edge of the city, then turned back, leaving them to the road. The world beyond the city was different, wilder, the sky darker, without the glow of the hall's lights. Their path led through thick, twisted trees that seemed to lean in close, the air heavy with the smell of earth and distant rain. Kari moved quickly, guiding him through narrow trails only she seemed to know. "We can reach the southern caves by dawn," she said. "They won't search there first." Hours passed, the sound of insects filling the air. Then a sharp crack of branches somewhere behind them made both freeze. Evan pulled Kari behind. A large root, his hand on the hilt of the blade, shapes moved in the darkness, quick and silent. Then a faint metallic glint caught the moonlight. "Hunters," Kari whispered. The first arrow flew past them, striking the tree with a hiss. Evan grabbed Kari's hand and ran. Weaving between the trees, the hunters gave chase, their footsteps light but fast. The pack on Evan's back bounced, the weight slowing him down. Another arrow grazed his shoulder. The sting, sharp but shallow, they broke out of the trees into a stretch of swamp, the air damp and full of buzzing insects. The ground sucked at their boots. Cody pointed toward a low ridge ahead. If we reach that, we can lose them. She said. Evan nodded, pushing forward, the muck pulling at his legs. A hunter leaped from the side, landing in front of Kari, his blade flashing in the moonlight. Evan didn't hesitate, swinging the curved weapon in a wide arc. The clash of metal rang through the swamp. The hunter staggered back but didn't fall. Kari ducked low, slipping past while Evan blocked another strike, the force jarring his arm. They moved again, breath ragged, the ridge coming closer. Finally, they scrambled up the rocky slope. The hunters slowed, unwilling to follow into the sharp, uneven terrain. Evan pulled Kari the last few steps, both of them collapsing behind a cluster of boulders. For a while, they just sat, catching their breath. The night wind cool against their faces. Kari glanced at him, her voice quiet. You didn't have to fight him. You could have run. Evan shook his head. Leaving you behind isn't an option. They stayed hidden until the forest below went silent, then moved on, keeping to the shadows. Evan noticed Kari watching him more now. Her trust in him no longer uncertain but solid. By the time the first faint light of dawn touched the horizon, they had reached the mouth of the southern caves. Dark and yawning like the entrance to another world, Evan knew they were safe for the moment. But the way Kari's eyes lingered on the horizon told him she knew the danger wasn't over. It had only begun, and somewhere behind them the enemy clan would be regrouping, sharper, faster, and even more determined to take her. The southern caves were dark and cold, the air damp with the smell of stone and water. Every sound seemed louder inside the echo of their footsteps. The slow drip of water from above, the faint rustle of small, unseen creatures moving in the shadows. Kari lit a small crystal lamp from her pack, its pale light casting long flickering shapes on the jagged walls. Evan followed close, his hand never far from the hilt of the curved blade. They walked for what felt like hours, the cave twisting and splitting into narrow paths. Kari seemed to know where she was going, turning left, then right, without hesitation. This place was used as a hiding ground during the old wars, she whispered. Few dare to enter now. Evan gave a small nod, but his eyes kept scanning the darkness behind them. By midday, they reached a wide chamber, the floor uneven and covered with loose stones. A crack in the ceiling let in a thin beam of sunlight. Kari set the lamp on a flat rock and pulled out food from her pack. They sat together, eating in silence. For a few moments, the quiet, almost peaceful, but it didn't last. A faint scraping sound echoed through the cave, slow at first, then faster. Evan froze. Kari's eyes widened. She quickly snuffed the lamp, plunging them into darkness, except for the thin shaft of light from above. They waited, the sound growing clearer, voices speaking in a low, rough tone. The words sharp, unfriendly, Kari's grip tightened on his arm. They found us, she whispered. Shapes appeared at the far end of the chamber, 3 figures, their armor marked with the symbol of the enemy clan. They stepped forward, their weapons glinting faintly. The leader's voice was calm, almost mocking. You've caused us a lot of trouble. Human, he said, but trouble can be forgiven. For the right price, Evan stayed silent. The leader's eyes slid to Kari, the chief's daughter, alive and well. You're worth more than gold, girl. Kari didn't flinch. She stood tall, her voice steady. You'll never have me. The leader smiled faintly. I'm not here to kill you. I'm here to make a trade. His gaze returned to Evan. Come with us, human. Betray her, and we'll send you home with enough riches to buy a city. Evan's jaw tightened. Not interested, the leader tilted his head. Think carefully, human. Stay with her, and you'll die. Maybe not today, but soon. My offer is the only chance you have to walk away from this alive." Evan took a slow step forward, his voice firm. "If you think I'd sell her out to save myself, you've got no idea who I am." The leader's smile vanished. His tone turned cold. "Then you'll die here." He signaled to his men, and they moved in fast. The first came at Evan with a short spear, the point flashing toward his chest. Evan twisted aside, the tip scraping his jacket. He swung the curved blade low, catching the attacker's leg. The man stumbled back with a curse. The second came. From the side, Kari ducked, grabbing a loose stone from the ground and hurling it with surprising force. It struck the side of his helmet with a sharp crack. The leader moved in now, striking hard, his blows heavy and precise. Evan blocked 1, 2, then barely dodged the third, the force of each hit sending shocks through his arms. The sound of metal clashing echoed in the chamber. Kari grabbed Evan's pack, pulling out the short-barreled weapon and firing it at the wall above the enemy. The blast shook loose a shower of rocks, the noise booming through the cave. Dust filled the air. The attackers coughed, momentarily blinded. Evan used the chance to slam his shoulder into the leader, knocking him back. "Move," he shouted to Kari. They ran through a narrow side tunnel, the walls scraping their shoulders, the shouts of the enemy fading behind them. They didn't stop until the tunnel opened into another chamber, smaller but hidden from the main paths. Both of them breathing hard, Kari set down the pack, her hands trembling. "You could have taken their deal," she said, her voice quiet. Evan shook his head. "I told you before, leaving you isn't an option." For a moment, she just looked at him, her eyes shining faintly in the dim light. "My father doesn't trust easily," she said softly. "But after this, I think you're proving him wrong." Evan gave a tired smile. "Let's hope he sees it that way." They stayed in the hidden chamber until the sounds of the enemy faded completely. But both of them knew they hadn't seen the last of the hunters. The caves might hide them for now. Yet the danger outside was only growing, and every step toward the capital meant more eyes, more traps, and more enemies waiting to take her. By the time Evan and Kari reached the alien capital again, the sun was low and the air was heavy with the scent of rain. Their clothes were torn, their boots covered in dust, and both carried fresh bruises from the fight in the caves. The guards at the outer gate stiffened when they saw them, then moved quickly to open the way. Word must have already reached the city, 'cause whispers spread as they walked through the streets. Faces turned, some curious, some in awe, others simply shocked to see them alive. Inside the hall, the chief was waiting. Standing tall in the center of the great chamber, the green light of the high windows casting long shadows across the floor. The moment Kari stepped inside, he moved forward, his usually hard expression softening for just a heartbeat as he looked at her. Then his gaze shifted to Evan, sharp again, but different somehow. More measuring than before, Evan stopped a few steps away, meeting the chief's eyes. Neither spoke. At first, the silence filled only by the faint hum of the hall's walls. Then the chief said, "You returned her to me." His voice was deep, carrying to every corner of the room. "And you did it while the enemy hunted you without pause." Kari stepped forward. Speaking before Evan could, they offered him freedom. They promised him riches if he left me. He didn't even think about it. He fought them instead. Her voice was steady, but full of emotion. The chief's eyes stayed on Evan. "Is this true?" he asked. Evan nodded once. "I told you before, leaving her was never an option." The chief studied him for a long moment, then turned so the entire council gathered along the walls could hear. "This human has done what many of our own would not. He has risked his life not once, but again and again for my daughter." The murmur that ran through the chamber was like a wave. Some voices surprised, others approving. One of the council elders spoke, his tone skeptical. "And what if his actions bring more danger to our people?" The prophecy says he will change the clans. Change can mean destruction as well as unity. The chief's gaze cut to the elder, his voice firm, and doing nothing brings destruction sooner. He turned back to Evan, stepping closer until they stood almost face to face. From this day forward, you are under my protection. The words were heavy, carrying not just authority, but a promise. Any hand raised against you will answer to me. A guard stepped forward, carrying a small silver crest, shaped like a coiled beast. The chief took it and pressed it to Evan's upper arm, the metal warm despite the cool air. The mark shimmered for a moment before sinking into his skin. Leaving a faint pattern like scarred silver, the chief's voice carried again. This is the mark of loyalty. It cannot be given lightly, and it cannot be taken back. You are now bound to this clan as one of our own. Evan glanced down at the mark. Feeling the weight of what it meant, Kari's eyes were bright, almost smiling, though she tried to keep her composure. The council watched in silence, some still skeptical, others clearly swayed. When the ceremony was done, the chief lowered his voice so only Evan could hear. The bite changed more than your body. It tied your fate to hers and to mine. Whether you believe in prophecy or not, the clans will. You must be ready for what comes next. Evan met his gaze without flinching. Then I'll be ready. Later, when the chamber had emptied, Evan and Kari stood on one of the hall's balconies, looking out over the city as the rain began to fall in soft sheets. The streets shimmered under the glow of alien lanterns. Kari leaned on the railing, her voice quiet, when I was trapped. In that market, I thought no one would help me. And then you stepped in. Evan looked out at the rain. I just did what felt right. She turned to him, a small smile on her lips. And now you're part of something much bigger than you. Ever imagined? He gave a faint laugh. Yeah. I'm starting to realize that. The rain washed the dust from their clothes. The air cool and clean, but beneath the calm, both knew the peace wouldn't last. The enemy clans had failed to take her. But they wouldn't stop trying. And now, Evan's survival and hers meant facing a galaxy that had just begun to take notice. Somewhere deep inside, Evan understood the chief's final words in the chamber. The bite had not just saved her life, it had set events in motion that neither of them could turn back. And as the rain fell over the alien capital, he knew that whatever came next, he would not walk away, not from her, and not from the fight that was surely coming.